Protests breaking out in Seoul, South Korea, as Donald Trump landed in Malaysia for a trip to Asia, where Donald Trump intends to further embarrass and humiliate the United States and attack our allies. The protest you saw there in South Korea was largely over the fact that Donald Trump is trying to extort South Korea out of $350 billion and says, if you don't pay us, America won't consider you a relying trading partner. And who even knows where that $350 billion is going to, and South Korea is not agreeing to that. Donald Trump, when he arrived in Malaysia, started doing a weird dance in front of the people of Malaysia. It was creepy and strange. It reminds me a lot of the dances that he would do with Jeffrey Epstein back in the 90s and early 2000s. Here, play this clip right here. Then Donald Trump gave a humiliating speech in Malaysia where he started whining about the escalator not working when he was at the United Nations and how his teleprompter didn't work. Again, utterly humiliating. Here, play this clip.
I won't forget that day because it was one of the first wars that I got involved in. And I love doing it. It's like, I shouldn't say it's a hobby because it's so much more serious than a hobby, but it's something that I'm good at, and it's something I love to do. The United Nations should be doing this, but they don't do it. You know, they don't do it. They turned off my teleprompter when I made a speech. I had to make a speech without a teleprompter. They're good at that. The escalator wasn't working too well. It came to a complete halt. But
we got to hear from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this morning, who was accompanying Donald Trump on this trip to Asia. Bessent reminded everybody that Donald Trump doesn't care what's happening in the United States right now. According to Bessent, he's just focused on what's happening in the Pacific. And just to quote it directly, what's happening in North America is taking second fiddle to Trump's leadership in the Pacific. Here, play this clip.
Whatever is going on back in North America, I think, is the taking second fiddle to President Trump's leadership out here in the Pacific.
Well, I wouldn't say there's leadership in the Pacific. I would say he's further humiliating and degrading American strength out in the Pacific and further hurting Americans. But I guess issues like the government shutdown, that 20 million Americans are being ripped off of healthcare, that Americans can't afford groceries, that Americans are psychologically tortured living paycheck to paycheck right now. I guess all of that doesn't really matter to the Trump regime. But what did matter is on his trip to Malaysia, Donald Trump stopped by his friends who gifted him a $400 million plane in Qatar. The Emir of Qatar, Al Thani, and the Prime Minister were there to greet Donald Trump and to show the world what their bribe of Donald Trump bought them, this access to the United States. The United States is for sale. Here's Donald Trump during a quick stop in Qatar with the emirs who gifted him a $400 billion jet, just flaunting the corruption in all of your faces while Americans are suffering. Here, play this clip.
Fuel up, it's such an honor to have you on the plane. You don't do this often. First time. I don't think he's ever done this, actually.
Then Donald Trump, just going back to the speech in Malaysia that he gave, he started bragging about bringing in $20 trillion into the United States, which is entirely false. Like literally all 20 trillion of it is false. He's just making up fake numbers again. He goes, after my first year, we bring in 20 trillion. We've already brought in 17 trillion. No, we brought in none of that at all. I mean, like what he considers bringing in investments is, he goes, Qatar agreed that they would give us $1.1 trillion. The entire annual GDP of Qatar is like $144 billion. They can't give us $1.1 trillion. But here he is lying. Play this clip.
Critical minerals and other industries, the United States is having its golden age. Last year, we were a country that was doing very poorly under a different semi-leadership. I don't even call it a leadership. But this year, we're doing numbers that nobody ever thought it was possible for any country to do. We'll be, at the end of my first year, over $20 trillion worth of investment into the United States. There's no country anywhere that's ever done anything close to that. The United States last year, for the 4 years, it was announced, did less than $1 trillion, and we're going to be doing over 20. That's quite a difference.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is asked on the morning shows, okay, well, you don't seem to care about North America. You don't care about the United States, but why are you bailing out? Let's go to South America. Why are you bailing out Argentina? Why is that America first? And then Bessent's like, oh, it's America first because Argentina is an American ally. So of course we're going to give them $40 billion. Of course, while Americans lose supplemental nutrition assistance program, 42 Americans could starve to death. We got to give $40 billion to Argentina. Here, play this clip.
To another big issue, the Trump administration recently extended a $20 billion lifeline to Argentina that has gotten some bipartisan criticism, Mr. Secretary, including from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. I'll read you a little bit of what she wrote. She says, quote, Americans are getting decimated with high cost of living and skyrocketing insurance costs. Many of them have zero savings and some are maxing out credit cards to survive. Tell me how it's America first to bail out a foreign country with 20 or even 40 billion taxpayer dollars. How is this move America first, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Kristen, it is America first because we are supporting a U.S. ally. There will be no taxpayer losses. This is a swap line. This is not a bailout. And it is from the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which Treasury, I control at Treasury.
Next, Bessent is asked about the prices of coffee and beef all going up. And Trump's promised he was going to bring those prices down. And Bessent says, oh, you're just cherry picking. You're just cherry picking those numbers. Actually, everything is going down right now. Things are much better. Egg prices are down. Gas prices, things are not down, man. I don't know what world you're living in. Well, I know what world you're living in. You're living in Mar-a-Lago world and Club Rose Garden world and where all the billionaires are. It's not what Americans are experiencing, you idiot. Here, play this clip.
Okay, let me ask you about something here back at home. Inflation, we learned this week that inflation in September ticked back up to 3%. That's the highest level since January. I want you to take a listen to something that President-elect Trump told me back in December. Take a look.
I started using the word, the groceries, when you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
Mr. Secretary, coffee prices are up 19% from a year ago. Beef is up almost 15% and bacon up almost 6%, just to name a few. So when are all grocery prices going to come down as President Trump promised?
Well, Kristen, it's unfortunate. As much as I like you, you like to cherry pick. So, when we came in, it was eggflation, eggflation, eggflation. Egg prices are down, gasoline prices are down. Overall, the inflation since President Trump has come in, has come down. We inherited this terrible affordability crisis from the Biden administration. The first thing we had to do was get it under control. And this month's inflation number was actually below the consensus number. If we look at core inflation, it was 0.2%, which was the lowest it's been in a long time. Rents are coming down. So, Kristen, you don't get to cherry pick. Inflation is a composite number, and I am confident that in the coming months, inflation is going to come down.
Just to be very clear, though, CPI has been higher in the past 3 months than it was in the first 5 months of the year. If President Trump's economic policies are working, why is inflation up? Why are those grocery prices that I just mentioned that he said were so critical, why are they up?
Well, again, Kristen, you're cherry picking because inflation actually had a drop, the first drop in 4 years in March and April under President Trump. And I am confident that as we come into the coming numbers, that we will see a drop in inflation back towards the Fed's 2% target. And I assume your next question is going to be to blame it on tariffs. And the imported goods have actually, the been quite flat or dropped, and it's mostly service goods. And another factor in the inflation report is what's called investment management income, and that's inflation that goes up because the stock market goes up, so management fees are higher.
Okay.
And then over here, you'll see Besant stammering as Kristen Welker presses him on why Trump won't negotiate with Democrats to end the shutdown. He's like, why would we even talk to the Democrats? Because that's how our system of government works. The position of the Democrats is extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Like, just keep people's health care reasonably priced. It should be lower, frankly, but just let's not destroy the healthcare system in America right now fully, okay? That's the position. It's like, why would I ever negotiate with them? Here, just play this clip right here.
We're now in the second longest shutdown in U.S. history. When will President Trump meet with Democrats to try to bring this shutdown to a close and get federal workers their paychecks back again, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Chris, I'm going to have to reject the premise of your question. Why does President Trump have to meet with Democrats? Democrats just need to go into the Senate and vote to end the shutdown.
But
look
President
at the numbers.
Trump has said in the past, it's up to the president.
52.
He's the president.
No.
He said that in the past. He said you have to be a leader. The president has to lead. You have to get people into a room. You have to get a deal. When's he going to do that?
Well, he is leading, and there's no deal to do with Chuck Schumer.
A few things I want to point out as well for you that I think is really important. These two articles, I think, say it all, and it's why it's important we have a good media diet. So here's this article which says, Besant vows that the U.S. won't lose taxpayer money aiding Argentina. And you'll see right here that this is being widely covered by right-wing media, but left-wing media and center-ish media is not really focusing on what Besant is saying, because we all know that Besant lies and it's propaganda. But the right-wing media needs to keep their base going with their Ponzi scheme and saying, okay, you see, taxpayers are not going to lose money off this deal. We all know that we all know what's going to really happen here. I just thought this article was interesting as well, too, as we're talking about international affairs. The majority of Israelis say Netanyahu should not run in the upcoming elections, poll shows. Very little right-wing media is covering how unpopular Netanyahu actually is in Israel because it doesn't fit the Trump narrative right there. And it's why I get my news. People say, well, Ben, how do you do your videos and where do you get your news from? Well, I get my news from something called Ground News, and it allows me to find these articles and to do my morning reports for you. It's a subscriber-funded app and news site, and every day they pull in thousands of articles from around the world. They organize them by story and show you what's the right-wing reporting, left-wing reporting, what's the kind of center media reporting, and it's a game changer. I think as active, responsible citizens, we must get our news from reliable sources, and in Trump's America, being informed about facts and media bias, I think, is more important than ever. And one of the features I like about Ground News is it also tells you, is it a conglomerate that's reporting it or is it like independent media? And I actually find it interesting in my view that independent media is often more factual than the conglomerate media. They have a great feature called Blind Spot, which is what I just showed you there, which says, okay, is this being overly focused on by right-wing media and then left-wing media? Then I can understand why those articles I showed you are a perfect example of it. The feature that I use on Ground News, it's called the Vantage subscription plan. And if you want to use the tools that I use, here's what you can do. Go to ground.news/MTN and get 40% off of the Ground News Vantage plan. That's what I use every morning. They're subscriber funded. And by subscribing, you're not only getting a tool we all need today, you're also supporting our work here on this YouTube channel. That's ground.news/MTN. And we pin the link to purchase your subscription below. Yeah, check them out. I love the work that they're doing. And I love using Ground News here on the MeidasTouch network. Going back to our video this morning, I've been showing you these clips of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent right here. And in this clip, he's asked about, the soybean farmers who are suffering and going bankrupt here in the United States. And then Bessent says, but look, I'm a soybean farmer myself, so I'm the one suffering. No, you're a billionaire. You're worth $600 million. So maybe a billionaire soon. I'm sure with the Trump grift, you'll be a billionaire soon. You go, I'm suffering. I'm feeling the pain. I'm a soybean farmer. Okay, relax. You've spent your money to buy up lots of land. You're not a soybean farmer. Just stop it. Cut it out. Like, do you see the gaslight? Do you see how these people are like ridiculous human beings? Like they're like sociopaths. Yeah, I'm just a farmer like you. I'm a soybean farmer. No, man, you're a billionaire idiot, who wants to harm people and inflict pain and think you talk to people like you think they're so stupid. And that's why people hate this regime, because we're not stupid and we know what you're up to. Here, play this clip.
I did mean the second term. I know they have met before. The president has also said he does want our farmers to be taken care of. You did mention that China has been boycotting American soybeans and American farmers have really suffered. Do you see a real light at the end of the tunnel there? They may allow soybeans again?
Well, Martha, in case you don't know it, I'm actually a soybean farmer, so I have felt this pain too. And there are a couple of things happening here. One, the Chinese have substantially dropped their purchases to almost zero, so they unfortunately have been using American farmers who are amongst President Trump's biggest supporters. I think he had more than 90% support. And then this was one of the biggest crops in 20 or 30 years, so it was a perfect storm. But I think we have addressed the farmers' concerns, and I'm not going to get ahead of the president, but I believe when the announcement of the deal with China is made public, that our soybean farmers will feel very good about what's going on both for this season and the coming seasons for several.
And then he's asked, well, why is Donald Trump setting a trade policy based on TV advertisements that make him mad? Okay, he doesn't like the advertisement that the province of Ontario is playing in the United States. So why is he setting his trade policy based on that? Here's what Besson says in response. Play this clip.
Issue, which is Canada, of course. This week, President Trump abruptly broke off trade talks with Canada and put another 10% tariff on Canada in response to an ad that the government of Ontario ran. It features former President Ronald Reagan. Why is the president setting trade policy based on a television ad he doesn't like?
Well, Kristen, let's think about this. This is a kind of propaganda against U.S. citizens. It's psyops. Why would the government of Ontario? I'm told that they have spent or were planning to spend up to $75 million on these ads to come across the U.S. border. So what was the purpose of that other than to sway public opinion? And it's some kind of propaganda that the premier of Ontario unilaterally launched.
Will the 10% tariffs apply to all Canadian goods, Mr. Secretary?
Kristen, I've been traveling since this unfortunate event happened. I know that the ad's been taken down. So, we'll have to see. But I just think it was terrible judgment by this premier, who has a bit of a reputation for being a hothead.
Okay, then we hear from, at least Rand Paul, Republican senator from Kentucky's, sounds a little bit, saying reasonable things at least here. And he's with Democratic Senator Kaine of Virginia. And here they are talking about, Trump's killing, these war crimes that are taking place where the United States military is just shooting fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela and Colombia. And Rand Paul makes the great point here. He's just like, so I'm just trying to understand this. On the one hand, we kill them on sight, but if they survive, we let them go back to their countries and they don't get prosecuted, the individuals on the fishing boat. Like, how does that make any sense? So on the one hand, they're horrible narco-terrorists, but if you survive the shooting, then we don't prosecute you. You get to go back to your country and nothing happens to you. It's like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Here, play this clip.
Well, and Senator Paul, I know you said this isn't about a briefing, but would there be some level of information? Because I've heard other members say they are convinced, they have been told that they can specifically identify these boats, the people on board, and the cargo on board to the level that they're comfortable. So, Senator Paul, do you think that that needs to be a public vetting, or if lawmakers are provided that information, that's enough for you?
won't be enough, but at the very least it should be revealed. There's at least 2 boats. One boat was said to be in distress and trying to get back to land that was bombed. That was said to be a fisherman. I don't know because I don't have any of the evidence. There's also an anomaly in the sense that one of the boats where a bunch were killed, there were 2 that survived. If they were drug dealers, why wouldn't we prosecute them, present evidence of the drugs, show the arms they were about to invade us with, or show us something? Instead, they're being sent back to Colombia and to Ecuador without a trial, and no one's sort of trying to find out, well, who is the one behind this massive conspiracy to invade America with drugs? They're just sending them back home. So in the one instance, you're killed on sight. On the other instance, if you're captured, we just say, oh, well, we're just going to send you back to your country. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay,
But what Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, wanted to make clear to everybody is that he loved Donald Trump dancing, because he says that Donald Trump dancing right now in Asia is what all Americans care about most. Here, play this clip.
And again, what I love about President Trump, and again, I love that you showed him dancing, having a good time. President Trump cares about the American people. He's tried to minimize the impact of Democrat shutdown on the American people, but there are certain things you just can't stop. And I can't stop the frustration of air traffic controllers. I can't find money to pay them. And again, you mentioned SNAP and you mentioned Obamacare subsidies. These are real pains that Americans are going to feel because of Democrats. And President Trump has done all he can to minimize it, but there's nothing else he can do. And in the end, you got to look at the Democrats and go, start focusing on Americans, American citizens, and what's best for us. Put America first, be a MAGA for a moment, and open up the government.
Right. And finally, Besant is asked by Kristen Welker, why didn't Trump tell the people that he was going to rip down the entire east wing of the White House? Like, isn't that a disclosure that should have been made? I'm going to bulldoze the entire east wing of the White House down. And then Besant, in like his arrogant way, is just like, I just think that was a judgment call. He made a judgment call, and he's a master builder, so we have to just listen to his judgment calls. Here, play this clip.
Why didn't the president tell the public he was going to tear down the entire east wing, which, as you know, is a part of the People's House?
Again, I think this was a judgment call on the president. The president is a master builder, and Kristen, I was for many years on the board of something called Classical American Homes, and I completely endorse what the president's doing here with the ballroom. And I don't know. I assume that maybe parts of the East Wing could have been asbestos, could have been mold, could have not fit with the design. But the classical architecture firm that's doing this is a magnificent structure that's going up. It's
poor judgment. It's criminal. It is beyond offensive. It shocks the conscience. I mean, these people are, all of them that I just showed you there. I mean, it's just despicable scumbag behavior. I don't know. It's criminal. We're watching criminals. We're watching just awful human beings who I'm showing you there. With the Epstein dancing in Malaysia. The hell are these people? Freaking weirdos who hate America. Trump hates America. Besant hates America. His whole regime, they hate America. They hate the farmers. They hate you. It's obvious they hate you. I mean, look at them. That's why I show you the clips. I'm like, these people clearly hate you. They hate America. They're driving America into the ground, these idiots. Anyway, hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks for watching.
New Meidas merch drop. Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.meidastouch.com.